The phone vibrated at the ICU nurse's station at 2 a.m. When I saw Dad on the screen, I felt a cold dread settle in my chest like ice water. "Hannah, we're at the end," my father whispered, his voice cracking in a way I'd never heard before. "We just wanted to say we love you before we go." No explanation, no address, no, "we're at the hospital," or "there's been an accident." Just the sound of my mother sobbing in the background, raw, desperate sobs that made my knees weak before the line went dead. I tried calling back 5 times, straight to voicemail. Every ring that went unanswered felt like a countdown I couldn't stop. I grabbed my keys with hands that wouldn't shake still and ran. My supervisor shouted something behind me about my shift, about protocol, but I couldn't hear anything except my mother's sobs echoing in my head. I broke every speed limit getting to their house. Every red light felt like a personal attack. My vision blurred with tears I couldn't wipe away because if I let go of the steering wheel, I'd lose what little control I had left. "Please don't let me be too late. Please." I knew something was wrong before I even pulled into the driveway. You can sense a crisis the way you can sense a lie. Something in the air shifts, goes still and cold. But what I sensed when I got there wasn't stillness. It was music. Upbeat jazz, to be specific, and laughter. The front door was wide open, not kicked in by paramedics, not broken, just casually, welcomingly open, like they were expecting guests. Yellow light spilled onto the porch in warm, cheerful pools. I could smell food. Good food. Expensive food. The kind you order for celebrations, not emergencies. I stood there in my scrubs, still wearing my hospital badge, my face wet with tears, trying to reconcile what I'd heard on the phone, my father's broken whisper, my mother's desperate sobbing, with what I was seeing now. My brain was doing that slow, stupid buffering thing it does when reality doesn't match the script. Then, my mother appeared in the doorway, wine glass in hand, lipstick perfect, smiling like she just won something. "Hannah, you came. We weren't sure you would, with your busy schedule and all." The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My lungs had forgotten how to work. Behind her, through the open door, I could see people, lots of people, mingling, laughing, holding drinks and tiny plates of appetizers. The living room looked like something out of a magazine. Flowers on every surface, candles glowing, jazz quartet music drifting from expensive speakers. And there, in the center of it all, was my brother Ethan. Expensive suit I'd never seen before, arms spread wide, accepting hugs and congratulations like a politician at a victory party. "What?" I finally managed, my voice coming out strangled. "What is this?" My mother's smile didn't waver. If anything, it got wider. "It's a party, sweetheart. Ethan made partner at the firm, didn't he tell you?" She tilted her head, studying my face with something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Oh my, you really thought?" She laughed, light and airy, like I just told a charming joke. "Hannah, you're shaking. Come inside before the neighbors see you like this." The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. "You called. You said goodbye. You said you were at the end." "Oh, that," my father appeared beside her, scotch in hand, completely alive, completely healthy, looking at me with something between amusement and irritation. "It was meant that we're at the end of our patience, honey. You haven't visited in over a month. We wanted to see if you'd actually show up if we made it sound urgent." The words hung in the air like smoke. I couldn't breathe through them. "A test?" My voice cracked. "You made me think you were dying as a test?" Ethan crossed the room, grinning like this was the funniest thing that had happened all night. Come on, sis, don't be so sensitive. Look around. Everyone's fine. Mom and Dad are great. I'm great. This is what family does. We show up. He emphasized the last two words like they were some kind of accusation, or at least some of us do. I looked around the room at the people who were now watching me with various degrees of discomfort or amusement. Aunt Carl, the Hendersons, people from their church, all of them holding drinks, all of them standing in the warm glow of this beautiful party, while I stood there in the hospital doorway in my scrubs with mascara running down my face. My mother stepped closer, her voice dropping to that passive-aggressive sweetness she'd perfected over decades. You should be happy, Hannah. Everyone's fine. No one's dying. Although, she glanced pointedly at my badge, at the stethoscope still hanging around my neck, you did leave work in the middle of your shift for this. That shows real dedication. We're proud of that loyalty. Aren't we, David? My father raised his glass. Absolutely. Means she still cares. Something cracked open inside my chest. Not breaking, fracturing, like ice that's been hit too many times. I opened my mouth to respond, to scream, to cry, to demand an apology, to ask what kind of people do this to someone they claim to love, when the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the jazz music like a knife. My father's smile faltered. Who else is coming? Everyone's already here. My mother's glass stopped halfway to her lips. I didn't invite anyone else. The doorbell rang again, longer this time, insistent, official. No one moved. The party guests shifted uncomfortably, conversations dying mid-sentence. Even the music seemed to quiet, though I knew that was impossible. I moved toward the door because no one else was, my legs working on autopilot, my mind still trying to process that the worst phone call of my life was a loyalty test. When I pulled it open and found a man I'd never seen before standing on the porch. He was in his 40s, wearing a suit that meant serious business, carrying a leather folder that looked ominous even in the cheerful porch light. Behind him stood Mrs. June Watkins, the elderly neighbor my parents had always dismissed as sweet but senile. She wasn't smiling, and neither was he. "Hannah Miller?" the man asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I'm Luke Bennett, private investigator." He held up credentials. "May I come in? I have some documents your parents need to see immediately." Behind me, I heard my mother's glass hit the floor and shatter. Luke Bennett stepped inside without waiting for permission, and Mrs. Watkins followed close behind. The cheerful party atmosphere evaporated like steam. Guests backed away instinctively, forming a semicircle around us like spectators at an accident scene. My mother recovered first, her voice taking on that smooth, hostess tone she used when she wanted to seem in control. "I'm sorry, but this is a private family celebration. Whatever you're selling—" "I'm not selling anything, Mrs. Miller." Luke's voice was calm, but carried weight. "I'm here on behalf of the estate of Margaret Kelly, your mother." He looked directly at me. "Hannah's grandmother." Relief crashed through me so hard my knees almost buckled. This wasn't about the phone call. This was about Grandma's estate. Legal paperwork. Something normal. Something that made sense. "Oh, thank God," I breathed out, pressing my hand to my chest. My heart was still racing from the panic, from the drive, from thinking my parents were dying. When you showed up, I thought maybe something else had happened. But this is just estate business, right? Paperwork? Luke's expression didn't change. "Not exactly." My father moved forward, placing himself between Luke and the rest of the room. His voice had that jovial, nothing to see here quality. "This really isn't the time. We're celebrating my son's achievement. If you want to schedule an appointment—" "Your accounts have been frozen as of 6 p.m. tonight. All of them. The freeze was issued by Judge Catherine Rodriguez based on evidence of systematic fraud and embezzlement." The room went dead silent. Even the jazz music seemed to fade into background static. I looked at my father, waiting for him to laugh, waiting for this to be another test, another sick joke. Dad? What's he talking about? My father's face had gone pale, actually pale, not the fake whisper goodbye pale from the phone call. This was real. There's been a misunderstanding, he said, but his voice had lost its confident edge. A clerical error. We'll clear this up on Monday. There's no error. Mrs. Watkins stepped forward, and I barely recognized her voice. Gone was the sweet, slightly confused elderly neighbor. This woman sounded like she'd spent decades in courtrooms. I have 18 months of documentation, photographs, bank statements, recordings. She looked at me, and her eyes were sad but determined. Hannah, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you have to learn about this like this, but your grandmother left her estate to you. The house in Malibu, the investments, the jewelry collection, all of it was supposed to go to you when you turned 30. My 30th birthday had been 6 months ago. They'd taken me to dinner, given me a card. I don't understand, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, something cold was settling in my stomach. Grandma's estate went through probate. Dad handled everything. He showed me the papers. The house had to be sold to cover medical bills. The house was never sold. It's currently being rented out for $8,500 a month. The rental income has been deposited into an account in your name, an account you never knew existed because the statements were going to your parents' address. Ethan laughed. Actually laughed. This is insane. You're accusing our parents of what? Stealing from their own daughter? Hannah's standing right here. If there was money, she'd know about it. Would she? Mrs. Watkins pulled out a folder. Hannah, when was the last time you saw your grandmother's will? I tried to think. Dad said I didn't need to see it, that it was straightforward. Everything went to cover expenses, and the rest was divided between him and... My voice trailed off. And nothing went to you, Mrs. Watkins finished, even though Margaret's will explicitly states that you were to receive everything. The house, the portfolio, worth $1.2 million, the jewelry collection. All of it was supposed to go to you when you turned 30. My 30th birthday had been 6 months ago. They'd taken me to dinner, given me a card. I don't understand, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, something cold was settling in my stomach. My mother's voice was sharp. Hannah, don't listen to this. These people are trying to cause trouble, trying to divide our family, after everything we've done for you. After everything you've done? Mrs. Watkins' voice rose. You called her tonight and made her think you were committing suicide. You made that girl break down on my porch at midnight, sobbing, begging me to check on you because she thought you were dying. And you did it as a test? The room erupted, guests gasping, someone saying, "Oh my God," Aunt Carol covering her mouth. Luke pulled out a small recording device. Mrs. Watkins called me the moment Hannah left her house. I've been parked outside for 40 minutes, and thanks to California's two-party consent laws, I have Mrs. Watkins' permission to play this. He pressed a button. My own voice filled the room, broken, desperate, recorded from Mrs. Watkins' porch. Please, Mrs. Watkins, can you go check on them? They called and said goodbye, and I think they're going to hurt themselves, and I can't get there fast enough, and I'm so scared. My mother's wine-smooth voice. Oh, Hannah's so dramatic. She hasn't visited in weeks. We wanted to see if she'd actually show up if we made it sound important. Mrs. Watkins, cold. You told your daughter you were dying as a test? My father laughing. She'll get over it. She always does. The recording stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room was spinning. Luke's voice cut through the silence. That phone call constitutes elder abuse fraud in California, but that's not why I'm here. He opened his folder. I'm here because 3 days ago, Ethan Miller attempted to transfer the deed of Margaret Kelly's Malibu property using a forged power of attorney. Every eye in the room turned to my brother. His confident smile finally cracked. The silence that followed was the kind that makes your ears ring. Every face in that room turned toward Ethan like compass needles finding north. He stood frozen by the fireplace, his congratulatory smile finally cracking at the edges. "That's a lie," Ethan said. But his voice had lost its easy confidence. I wouldn't. "You signed the documents yourself." Luke pulled out a stack of papers, holding them up for the room to see. "Notarized on December 18th, 3 days ago. You claimed to have power of attorney over Hannah Miller's assets due to her incapacitation." He looked directly at me. "Were you incapacitated on December 18th, Hannah?" I tried to think back. 3 days ago. Tuesday. I worked a double shift. I was at the hospital from 6 a.m. until midnight. So, fully functional, fully employed, making medical decisions for critically ill patients? Luke turned back to Ethan. "Want to explain how your sister was simultaneously incapacitated enough for you to claim power of attorney?" Ethan's face had gone red. "You're twisting things. David asked me to handle some paperwork." "David asked you to commit fraud?" Luke's voice stayed level, but I could hear the steel underneath. "That's your defense?" My father moved then, stepping between Luke and Ethan like a shield. "This is harassment. I'm calling our lawyer." "You mean Gerald Fisher?" Mrs. Watkins pulled out her phone. "Already called him. He resigned as your attorney approximately 40 minutes ago when I sent him copies of the forged documents. He said, and I quote, 'I will not be party to elder fraud and identity theft.'" The floor tilted under my feet. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. This couldn't be real. This was my family. The same people who'd just thrown a party, who'd called me dramatic, who'd made me think they were dying as a test. The thought hit me like cold water. They'd done that, actually done that, made me break every speed limit, cry until I couldn't see, beg a neighbor for help, all to test my loyalty. And now I was supposed to believe they wouldn't steal from me? "Hannah." My mother's voice was soft now, conciliatory. She moved toward me, hands outstretched like I was a spooked animal. "Honey, you have to understand. We were protecting you. All that money, that property, it's a burden. We were managing it for you until you were ready." "Managing it?" My voice came out wrong, too high, too tight. "You told me there was nothing left. You told me Grandma's medical bills took everything. You showed me papers." "We simplified things," my father cut in. "Made it easier for you to focus on your career without worrying about $1.2 million? The number felt obscene in my mouth. Without worrying about a house? About the fact that my grandmother left me my entire estate? "See, this is exactly why we didn't tell you." Ethan found his voice again, stepping around our father. "You're getting hysterical. You can't handle this kind of responsibility. Someone has to make the hard decisions." "Like forging my signature?" I turned on him, and something in my voice made him take a step back. "Like trying to steal a house out under me? What were you going to do, Ethan? Sell it? Were you going to send me a Christmas card from whatever beach you bought with my inheritance?" "It's not like you needed it." His face twisted with something ugly, something that probably been there all along and I'd just never seen it. "You've got your little nursing job, your little apartment, you're fine. But I have expenses. I have a lifestyle. You have a partnership." I gestured around at the party that was still technically happening, though everyone had stopped pretending to celebrate. "This whole party is because you made partner. You're successful. Why would you need to—" "Because the partnership is a lie." The words exploded out of him. "I didn't make partner. I got fired 6 weeks ago for billing fraud. This party was supposed to be cover until I figured out how to tell everyone, and the Malibu house was going to be my way out. Sell it, move to Arizona, start over somewhere no one knows me." The room erupted. Gasps, someone's aunt saying, "Jesus Christ!" The Hendersons edging toward the door. My mother's face had gone white. "Hannah, shut up." "Why?" He laughed, and it sounded unhinged. "They're going to find out anyway. It's over. All of it's over." Luke cleared his chest. "Not quite." He pulled out another document. "Because I haven't told you the best part yet." He looked at me. Hannah, 3 months ago, someone opened a line of credit in your name, $75,000. The statements were sent to your parents' address. The money was withdrawn in cash over the course of 8 weeks. He paused. Want to guess who made the withdrawals? I felt numb, beyond shock, beyond anger, just empty. Who? All three of them. Mrs. Watkins' voice was gentle but firm. Your mother, your father, and your brother. Bank security footage shows them taking turns, like they'd worked out a schedule. I turned to look at my parents. Really look at them. My father in his expensive suit, my mother in her designer dress, the remodeled kitchen behind them, the new furniture, the party that probably cost thousands. All of it built on money stolen from me. The goodbye call tonight, I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. You weren't testing my loyalty. You were trying to distract me. My father's face told me everything I needed to know. Distract me from what? I took a step toward him. What was happening tonight that you needed me out of my apartment? Luke and Mrs. Watkins exchanged a glance. Hannah, Mrs. Watkins said carefully, when you left for the hospital this morning, did you lock your personal safe? My blood went cold. Yes. Why? Because someone entered your apartment at approximately 7 p.m. tonight. Your landlord's security footage shows a man using a key, entering and leaving 20 minutes later with a small metal box. The room spun under my feet. My grandmother's jewelry, the few pieces she'd given me before she died, the ones I'd kept in my safe because they were the only things I had left of her. Who? I whispered, but I already knew. Luke pulled up a photo on his phone and turned it toward me. The man in the grainy security footage was unmistakable. Ethan, my brother, in my apartment, carrying my safe. He's had a copy of your key for 3 years, Mrs. Watkins said quietly. Your mother gave it to him, in case of emergencies, she said. I looked at my brother, at the man who just confessed to being fired, to trying to steal a house, to planning to flee the state, the man who was currently wearing a watch I'd never seen before, an expensive watch, the kind you don't buy unless you have money to burn, or jewelry to pawn. Where is it? My voice didn't sound like mine. Where's my grandmother's jewelry? Ethan's silence was answer enough. Tell me! The scream tore out of me before I could stop it. Tell me you didn't sell my grandmother's things for what? For this party? For that suit? For... I needed the money, Ethan shouted back. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the debts, the people I owe. I needed... The front door burst open. 2 police officers stood on the threshold, badges already out. Ethan Miller? The first officer said. My brother's face went from red to gray in seconds. You're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and breaking and entering. As they moved toward him, my brother looked at me one last time, and in that look, I saw something that made my skin crawl. He wasn't sorry. He was furious. Furious that he'd been caught. The officers had him in handcuffs when he finally spoke. You're going to regret this, Hannah. You're going to destroy this family over money, over things. What would Grandma say? And that's when I saw it. On his wrist, just as the officers turned him toward the door, my grandmother's bracelet, the one she wore every day for 40 years, the one she'd held my hand with when she told me she loved me for the last time. He was wearing it. I tuttered lightly. That's mine. Ethan smiled. Actually smiled. Prove it. The officers let him out. The door closed, and I stood in the middle of that beautiful party, in my hospital scrubs, surrounded by people who'd watched my family destroy themselves, and I realized something. The goodbye call wasn't a test. It had been a distraction. And while I'd been racing to save my parents from a crisis that didn't exist, my brother had been in my apartment, stealing the last pieces of my grandmother I had left. Mrs. Watkins touched my arm gently. Hannah, there's something else you need to know. I turned to her, and the look on her face made my heart stop. The theft, the forgery, the phone call, none of that is the worst part. She hesitated. Your grandmother's will had a clause. If you didn't claim the estate within 6 months of your 30th birthday, everything would default to your parents. 6 months. My 30th birthday had been exactly 6 months ago yesterday. We have 24 hours, Luke said quietly. If we don't file the claim by tomorrow at 5 p.m., the estate transfers automatically, and once it's in their names, we can't get it back, I finished. My parents stood frozen across the room, and I finally understood. The party, the test, the goodbye call, the robbery, none of it was random. They'd been running the clock. The party guests fled like roaches when lights turn on. Aunt Carol didn't even say goodbye. The Hendersons left their coats. Within 5 minutes, the house that had been full of celebration was empty except for me, my parents, Luke, Mrs. Watkins, and the ghost of what my family used to be. My mother stood by the fireplace, still holding her wine glass, still composed, still perfect. Like her son hadn't just been arrested, like her entire world hadn't just collapsed. "Well," she said, taking a sip, "that was dramatic." The word hit me like a slap, the same word she'd used when I arrived, when I was shaking and crying because I thought they were dead. Dramatic. "You have 24 hours to sign the estate claim," Luke said, placing papers on the coffee table. "After that, everything transfers to your parents by default, the house, the investments, all of it." My father finally moved, crossing to the bar to pour himself a drink. His hands were steady. "Hannah, before you do anything rash, you need to understand something." "Rash?" The laugh that came out of me sounded broken. "You stole from me. You made me think you were dying. Ethan robbed my apartment while you kept me here, and you think I'm being rash?" "We're still your parents," my mother set down her wine glass with a soft click. "We raised you, fed you, paid for your education. Everything you have because of us." "Everything I have?" I looked down at my scrubs, still damp with tears from the panic drive. "I'm a nurse. I work 60-hour weeks. I live in a studio apartment I can barely afford. Meanwhile, you've been collecting rent on a Malibu house worth over $1 million, money that was supposed to be mine." Supposed to be. My father's voice had that edge now, that tone he used when he was about to explain why I was wrong. That's the key phrase, isn't it? Your grandmother wanted you to leave money, but she also wanted you to be responsible, mature, ready to handle that kind of wealth. And you decided I wasn't? My voice was rising. You decided you were better judges of my maturity than my own grandmother? "We decided to protect you." My mother moved closer, her voice dropping to that sweet, reasonable tone that had always made me feel like I was overreacting. "Hannah, sweetheart, you have to understand. When your grandmother died, you were in a very fragile state. You'd just broken up with Michael. You were working those terrible hours. You were barely taking care of yourself." "I was grieving." The words exploded out of me. "I was grieving my grandmother, and instead of supporting me, you were forging documents and stealing my inheritance." "We were managing assets," my father corrected. "There's a difference." "You made me believe there was nothing." I grabbed the papers from the coffee table, my hands shaking so badly the pages rattled. "You showed me fake probate documents. You told me Grandma's medical bills took everything. You let me work myself to exhaustion, thinking I had to make it on my own, while you were living off my money." "Our money," my mother said softly. "Half that estate should have been David's anyway. Margaret was his mother. He had just as much right." "She wrote a will," I shouted. "She made her wishes clear. She left everything to me, and you stole it." My father slammed his glass down. "We saved it. If we'd given you $1.2 million at 29, what would you have done? Quit your job? Traveled? Made stupid decisions? We were protecting you from yourself." By stealing from me? By opening credit cards in my name? By having Ethan rob my apartment? I turned to Mrs. Watkins. Tell me the truth. How bad is it? How much did they take?" Mrs. Watkins pulled out her folder, and I watched my mother's face tighten. The Malibu house generated $153,000 in rental income over 18 months. The investment portfolio had dividends of approximately $47,000. The credit cards total $75,000, and we're still tracking the jewelry, but based on the pieces your grandmother documented in her will, we're estimating another $80,000 in value. I did the math in my head. $355,000. You've stolen $355,000 from me in less than 2 years. "We managed assets," my father repeated, "and if you sign those papers and take control, you'll owe us repayment for 18 years of raising you, feeding you, housing you." "Are you joking?" I stared at him. "You're trying to bill me for being your daughter?" "Children cost money, Hannah." My mother's voice had gone cold, hard. The mask was slipping. "Approximately $233,000 to raise a child to 18 in California. We have receipts. Tuition, medical bills, food, clothing, everything." Luke cleared his throat. "That's not how the law works, Mrs. Miller. You can't retroactively charge your adult child for parenting expenses, especially not when you've been committing fraud against them." "It's not fraud when it's family." My father's face was red now. "Hannah, you need to think very carefully about what you're about to do. You sign those papers, you take control of that estate, and you're choosing money over your family, over us, over everything we built together." "You didn't build anything," my voice cracked. "You stole. You lied. You made me think you were dying so Ethan could rob me. What family does that?" "A family that's trying to survive?" My mother's composure finally shattered. "You think this house pays for itself? You think your father's business didn't take hits during COVID? You think we didn't struggle? That money was supposed to keep us afloat until things stabilized." "So you stole it." The words hung in the air. "You decided your comfort was more important than my grandmother's wishes, more important than my future, more important than telling me the truth." My mother's eyes narrowed. "You want to know the truth, Hannah? Here's the truth. Your grandmother never liked you as much as you thought she did. She left you that money out of guilt, not love. Guilt because she knew David never got the attention he deserved. She was trying to make up for a lifetime of favoritism by giving you everything." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" My mother's smile was cruel now. "Why else would she leave her only son nothing? Why else would she give everything to a granddaughter she barely knew?" "She knew me." My voice was barely a whisper. "I visited her every week. I sat with her when she was dying. I held her hand when she was scared. Where were you?" "Managing her care," my father said. "Paying her bills, making sure she had the best facility. You put her in that facility so you could rent out her house." The pieces were clicking together. "She wanted to stay in her own home. She begged me to help her stay, but you told me it wasn't safe, that she needed professional care, that it was what was best for her." "It was what was best," my mother snapped, "for everyone, including you. That house generated enough income to cover her facility costs, and then some. We were being practical." "You were stealing from her while she was alive." I turned to Luke. Is there... "The facility costs were paid from her own Social Security and pension," Luke said quietly. "Every dollar of rental income went into your parents' account. Margaret Kelly spent the last 18 months of her life thinking she was broke, rationing her pain medication because she didn't want to burden anyone with costs, while your parents collected $8,000 a month from her house." My mother's face went white. "She died thinking she was a burden," I whispered. "She apologized to me for not having anything to leave me. She cried because she thought she'd failed me. And the whole time, we did what we had to do." My father's voice was desperate now. "You want to judge us? Fine, but you weren't there. You didn't have to make the hard choices. You didn't have to keep a family afloat while everything was falling apart. By stealing from your dying mother?" My voice was ice. "That was your hard choice? Making Grandma think she was worthless while you profited from her property?" The silence that followed felt like standing on broken glass. Mrs. Watkins touched my arm. Hannah, we should go. You need to review these documents somewhere quieter, somewhere you can think. She's not going anywhere. My father moved between me and the door. Not until we settle this. Hannah, you sign those papers, you destroy this family. Your brother's already arrested. You want to add your parents to that? You want to be responsible for tearing apart everything we built? You tore it apart. You did this, all of it. And you're standing here trying to make me feel guilty for not letting you get away with it? We're trying to make you see reason, my mother said. That money won't make you happy, Hannah. It'll just make you a target. People will use you. You'll never know who really cares about you and who just wants your money. At least with us, you know we love you. Love? The word felt like poison in my mouth. You made me think you were committing suicide as a test. That's not love. That's torture. That was a mistake, my father admitted. We went too far with the phone call. We see that now. But everything else, the estate management, the protection of assets, that was us being good parents, keeping you safe. From what? I demanded. From my own grandmother's wishes? From financial security? From the truth? From yourself. My mother's voice cracked. You're not equipped for this, Hannah. You've never been good with money. You'd waste it all on charity cases and your bleeding heart causes, and in 5 years you'd be broke and blaming us for not stopping you. You don't get to decide that. I grabbed the papers from Loop. Grandma decided. She left everything to me, and I'm going to honor her wishes. If you walk out that door, you're not our daughter anymore. My father's voice was flat. Final. You choose money over family, you're on your own. No more Sunday dimmers, no more Christmas, no more birthdays. You'll be dead to us. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Mrs. Watkins squeezed my arm. Hannah, let's go. No. I turned to face my parents one last time. I want to hear them say it. I want to hear you tell me that I'm only your daughter if you let me steal from me. Say it out loud. My mother and father looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. When my mother spoke, her voice was soft, gentle, the tone she used when I was little and had nightmares. Hannah, sweetheart, you're not thinking clearly. You're upset. You're emotional. Why don't you sit down, have some water, and we can talk about this like adults? I am thinking clearly. I moved toward the door. For the first time in years, I'm seeing exactly who you are. You're making a mistake, my father said. The only mistake I made was believing you loved me more than you loved money. I walked toward the door, Luke and Mrs. Watkins behind me. My mother's voice stopped me on the threshold. Hannah, wait. I turned. She was crying, real tears, her perfect makeup running, her hands shaking. Please, baby, please don't do this. We're your parents. We're your family. You can't just throw that away over money. You threw me away first, when you decided I was worth less than a rental property, when you let Grandma die thinking she was a burden, when you made me think you were dying just to keep me distracted. You threw me away a long time ago. I'm just finally letting go. I walked out into the night air. The door closed behind me, and I realized something. This was the real goodbye. Not the one on the phone, not the one they faked. This was me saying goodbye to people who'd never really been my family at all. Luke's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. We have a problem. What now? I was so tired, so completely drained. Your parents filed an emergency injunction 10 minutes ago. They're claiming you're mentally unstable due to work stress and requesting the court freeze all estate claims until a psychiatric evaluation can be performed. They've got a doctor lined up to testify you're having a breakdown, someone named Dr. Richard Brennan. My blood went cold. Dr. Brennan was the staff psychiatrist at my hospital. He'd done my employment evaluation. He knew I had access to medications. He knew I worked with vulnerable patients. If he testified I was unstable, I wouldn't just lose my estate. I'd lose my nursing license. My parents were trying to destroy my entire life.